drive back into where the neighborhood is, where my house is, and it's just a totally different, and I hate to tell you this, but it's just more of an unhappy feeling, and it's almost as if I can't control it in certain ways. It's, you know, just coming from, you know, the environment I'm surrounded in. But, so yeah, all these little different kinds of, energies around us will definitely, I totally agree with everything you're saying right there about that, and this is so neglected. And I think the reason it's so neglected by people and so few people know about it is because we're always looking outside of ourselves. To notice what you're saying, you have to, in the first place, be paying attention to your feelings, you know, rather than everything outside of yourself. You need to pause and notice that I have this sort of feeling, really get into it, really dive deep into it and feel it. And you'll notice how radically different, and, you know, sometimes there's subtle changes, but other times there's just be quite radical changes from one environment to the next. So yeah, that's a great point, incredibly neglected. And as far as our sovereignty over the physical, I do hold a pretty strong, through things that I've witnessed in my meditation practice through the last 2 decades, and which resulted in my book Telementation, I've just seen some pretty powerful, I mean, even up till this week, some just amazing things in my world of how the consciousness really is the master of the physical domain in pretty extreme ways. And we're taught in our science fiction movies that, you know, this is all just science fiction, and we don't have all this power. And then in the universities, they tell us, no, the consciousness is controlled by the world. You go to the social science department, and they'll say, a person's behavior is shaped by the environment. And so we're taught all this. This is basically fatalism, and we're taught this, you know, indirectly through many different, you know, media channels, at least here in America. And I just disagree with all of it. It's for the experiment that I just cited a little while ago, and I could cite many others, show us that no, we need to have the exact opposite perspective. We've got incredible power over the physical world. And I mean, I don't know if something like breatharianism is true or not, but my gut is, from what I've seen, I haven't seen something that dramatic as breatharianism, but I would guess that something like that is definitely a reality. That's just a strong form of powerful meditation and telementation. So yeah, I would take that we have utter control over our physical world if we want it, and if we're in that sort of meditational frequency.
You know, I saw a man that was a breatharian, and he went 6 months without food. And he found that more and more he had to remove himself from all negative input, all negative thought, and couldn't be anywhere around people that would say, you've got to eat sometime. And so, you know, that kind of input was real dramatic. Now, I think this has a lot to do, Kerry, with the fact that we're struggling today with what we call this money, this thing called money and the Federal Reserve. And my kind of take about this with what Jeff is saying is that we really don't comprehend what money is, and that what we need to do has to go to a different level when it comes to our exchange of energy with each other. You know, I've always said that there's got to be a time come when you and I can just walk in the grocery store, get our groceries. We don't pay for it, we just get them. Now, I'm not talking about going and getting a truck and loading up the whole grocery store. I'm talking about just what we need. And, you know, some people may want to do it a month at a time. Some may like the trip and do it every week or every day or whatever, go to the markets or whatever they're doing. And then
definitely that. I mean, ET races apparently do have that premise. And so I think that we are moving in that direction. But we're also moving in the direction where we're not going to need to go to a grocery store because that's not how we eat. I mean, what I think we're also talking here about is, and this is a matter of degree, but we are moving from the third dimensional reality where opposition kind of rules into the fourth or fifth or even more so. And we are becoming aware of ourselves on other levels simultaneously with the physical. And so what happens is this denseness that we think of as, or what is 3D, is becoming thinner. It's becoming lighter. it's becoming less 3D in essence. So when you talk about people that are able to do things like being a breatharian, what they're actually doing is changing dimensions. They're not actually still inhabiting the 3D completely. They're probably being bilocating in essence. Their physicality is much less here anyway, if not completely removed. And that happens also during meditation. I mean, you can move dimensions. And this is the other side of things, is that we are time travelers. We are multidimensional, and therefore we don't need to actually be here. It depends where our consciousness is at any given moment. And that means that's why I was bringing up signal non-locality and this idea that do you really need to inhabit space-time or time-space, as they say it, whether it's because if you're in 3D, then it seems that if you're close and local, you can affect something more than if you're distant. But actually, what we're finding out, and what remote viewers and other psychics and so on are finding out more and more, is that that it's not dependent on closeness to a target in order to get it accurately or even to be affected by it. And this is where your quantum healing is coming in, because ultimately it's and this is where it gets down to this really sort of big emphasis. If you don't want a global consciousness, or you don't want sort of a takeover of the New World Order, then the decision is to go, completely local. And I have to say that I don't see that as a solution either. And this probably would provoke a whole nother discussion, and we would have to have hours more of time to actually go into all of that. But in essence, we really need to just become more and more aware of who we are and what we're capable of, and the multidimensional quality of who we are, in order to tap into how to heal ourselves, how to heal others, how to heal the earth, and how to move from one place to another. Not using normal airplanes, by the way, because that's really a drag. I have to say, moving from portal to portal would be much more pleasant, and then even going inside a craft of any kind. But, and this is where a whole discussion of free energy, and is free energy really free? And it gets very complex when you're talking about Earth systems and systems that have to do with solar systems and galaxies, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I know I'm kind of getting out there for the discussion, but I just wanted to bring those aspects forward. I think we've only got 2 short minutes here, so maybe we could wrap up really quickly. Dr. Grupp, is there anything you'd like to say before we close here?
Yeah, what you said about changing dimensions that's the big issue right there. Just very quickly, that's what happens in meditation. That's the whole point. The physical is not the real. We want to get to these points where we see these fields of energy all around us where we previously didn't see, because our physical eyes can't see them. Only our mind's eye can see them. So that's a big point that you made.
Great. And Dr. Waterman, do you want to wrap up in any way? And I want to thank you very much for coming forward and pitch hitting the way you're doing. It's really extraordinary.
Well, I think that it's always important for us to realize that we're here in a physical way. It distracts us in a great many ways. We have this need to figure out physical things like eating and moving forward in that and type of thing, and taking care of our families and that kind of thing. But I don't want us to ever lose focus of the fact that we are more than just physical. And it's a very real and more eternal than this physicality that we have that is really important. And I think that's the main focus. We just have to constantly be conscious of coming back to that really important aspect of who we are, and it's not physical. It's not really who we are.
So I want to say that this is Kerry from Project Camelot, projectcamelot.org, projectcamelotportal.com. Please do visit our site, watch our videos. I encourage you to do so. We are going to be taking advertisers of like-minded people, so you're welcome to go onto our website and find my email address and contact me in that regard. I want to thank you, Dr. Jeff Grupp, for coming on here. obviously we've never met, and this was very impromptu. Dr. Deagle set this up the prior hour, but you've been very gracious and a great sport in coming on and talking with us today. Do you want to give your website at least that much?
Yeah, thank you for having me on, by the way. My website is antimatterradio.com.
Okay, and thanks, everyone, and we'll be back next week. And Dr. Waterman's show is coming up next.